3 days after my son won the lottery, he kicked me out of his house saying, "I don't need your money anymore." But he bought the ticket with my card, so the winnings were mine. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The knife slipped from my trembling hands, clattering against the ceramic tile. Droplets of blood mixed with the remains of the birthday cake I'd spent hours perfecting. "Mom, seriously? Can you be any more dramatic?" Jason sighed, not bothering to help me up. "It's just a cut." I pressed a dishcloth against my palm, avoiding his impatient stare. 58 years old, and I felt like a child being scolded. "I'm sorry about the mess," I whispered. "Whatever. The guys will be here in an hour. Try to stay out of sight, okay? Nobody wants to hear about your teaching days." The words stung more than the cut. I'd spent 30 years molding young minds, and now my only son treated my life's work like embarrassing small talk. "I made your favorite, chocolate with cream cheese frosting." I gestured toward the 3-layer cake, now partially destroyed. "For your birthday." Jason glanced at it, barely acknowledging the hours I'd spent. "You always make too much. Such a waste of money." Money. It always came back to that. The money I'd scraped together after Robert died. The money that put Jason through law school. The money I no longer had because I'd invested it all in him. "Speaking of which," he continued, scrolling through his phone, "we need to talk about the household expenses. Your portion needs to increase. But you said last month—" "Things change, Mom. It's my house. My rules. My house." Those words echoed through me like a slap. This modest Chicago home had been purchased with my teacher's pension as the down payment. But Jason's name was on the mortgage because my credit wasn't strong enough after Robert's medical bills. Later that night, I sat alone in my small bedroom, listening to the laughter downstairs. Jason's colleagues from the law firm were over, drinking the expensive scotch I wasn't supposed to know about. I heard my name mentioned, followed by chuckles. "Poor Margaret," a female voice said. "Does she always hover like that?" "Family obligation," Jason replied casually. "What can you do?" Family obligation. 12 years ago, when Robert clutched his chest and collapsed in our kitchen, I became a widow at 46. Jason was 22, halfway through law school. I could have used the life insurance to secure my future, but instead, I spent every penny ensuring my son could finish his education. Now I lived in the guest bedroom of his house, carefully counting out grocery money while he bought designer clothes and complained about my existence. I stared at my reflection in the small vanity mirror. When had my hair gone so gray? When had the light in my eyes dimmed to nothing? Outside my door, the party continued. Someone proposed a toast. "To Jason Sullivan, future partner material." I closed my eyes, remembering how Robert would have been proud of his son becoming a lawyer. But would he be proud of the man Jason had become? The cut on my palm throbbed as I changed the bandage. Tomorrow I would make breakfast as usual. I would smile and clean and make myself small. But for the first time in years, I wondered, how much longer could I live like this? I discovered Jason's professional troubles by accident. A letter marked "confidential" lay open on the kitchen counter while he showered. Professional misconduct, probationary status, possible disbarment. My heart raced as I carefully replaced it exactly as I'd found it. When he came downstairs, I pretended to be absorbed in washing dishes. "Mom, we need to talk about your finances," he said, pouring coffee. I kept my eyes on the suds. "What about them?" "Your retirement account. The way you manage money is inefficient." His voice had that smooth, lawyerly tone he used when building toward something. "I could help you optimize." "I'm doing fine," I said. "Are you?" "Because your credit card statement shows you're spending recklessly." I turned to face him. "Recklessly? Jason, I bought new underwear and had lunch with Diana twice. That's hardly. It adds up. Look, I'm just trying to help." He softened his approach. "Dad would have wanted me to look after you." The mention of Robert always worked on me. It was Jason's nuclear option. A week later, I signed the authorization form. "This just gives me visibility," Jason explained. "I'll help you avoid unnecessary expenses." At first, everything seemed normal. Small purchases appeared: groceries, gas, pharmacy. Jason even pointed out a way to save on my prescriptions. Perhaps I'd misjudged him. 6 months passed. I was preparing dinner when Jason burst through the front door, his face flushed with excitement. "Cancel whatever you're making. We're ordering in. He waved a piece of paper frantically. Champagne night. What happened? Just the biggest win of my life. He grabbed his phone, already dialing. Sushi from Makoto. The expensive stuff. That night, Jason drank 3/4 of the champagne himself. As I cleared the containers, he watched me with an odd expression. You know what, Mom? I've been thinking. His words slurred slightly. Maybe it's time you found your own place. I froze. What? I'm 34. I need my space. But where would I go? My pension barely. That's not really my problem, is it? Something cold had entered his voice. I've carried you long enough. Carried me? Jason, I put you through law school. I gave you everything I had. He leaned forward. And I've repaid that debt by letting you stay here. But things are changing for me. What things? I asked, though something in me already knew. A week later, the news broke. Jason Sullivan, Chicago attorney, had won the Powerball. $237 million. That evening, I confronted him. The lottery ticket. You bought it with my credit card, didn't you? Jason's smile never reached his eyes. Prove it. I'm your mother. I just want... What you want doesn't matter anymore. He slid an envelope across the table. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. I've been generous enough to include 3 months' rent for a modest apartment. But if the ticket was purchased with my card, he laughed. Who do you think a judge would believe? A respected attorney or a confused old woman? I've been managing your finances with your written permission. Remember the form you signed? My world collapsed as I realized what had happened. My own son had stolen my identity to purchase the winning ticket, and he'd done it perfectly legally. The studio apartment smelled of old cigarettes and desperation. 28 days after Jason's ultimatum, this was all I could afford. I sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, surrounded by cardboard boxes containing the remnants of my life. The ancient television flickered in the corner, my only connection to the outside world. The local news anchor's perfect smile filled the screen. Chicago attorney Jason Sullivan collected his Powerball winnings today, opting for the lump sum payment of approximately $135 million after taxes. The camera panned to my son, looking polished in an expensive new suit. I always knew my luck would turn around, Jason told the reporter. I saved for this ticket, and my intuition was right. I threw my shoe at the television. Liar! A knock at the door startled me. I hastily wiped my tears and opened it to find an older woman with sharp eyes and silver hair cut in a practical bob. Welcome to Oakwood Apartments. I'm Diana Winters, the building manager. She extended a hand. Heard the television. Everything okay in here? I nodded unconvincingly. Diana's eyes narrowed. You're the mother, aren't you? The lottery winner's mother. My shoulders slumped. How did you know? 30 years as a paralegal teaches you to recognize people from grainy news footage. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. They showed you in the background when he was being interviewed. You looked like you'd seen a ghost. He's my son, I whispered. And he stole from me. Diana settled into the room's only chair. Tell me everything. An hour later, she was pacing the small apartment. The laws of Illinois on unauthorized credit card use are very specific, she said. Especially when there's documentation showing absence of consent for certain types of purchases. But I signed the authorization. For managing your finances, not gambling. Was lottery explicitly included in the agreement? I shook my head. And do you have the credit card statements showing the purchase? I pulled out a folder. Everything's here. The charge from Lucky Corner appears on the statement. Same day the winning ticket was purchased. Diana studied the document. This is something, Margaret. This is definitely something. I sighed. No lawyer will touch it. I've tried. No one wants to go against a new millionaire. You're asking the wrong lawyers. Diana pulled out her phone. My goddaughter Sarah specializes in financial fraud. Harvard law, tough as nails, and hates entitled men. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop, one of the few possessions Jason hadn't managed to claim, and searched his name. Social media exploded with updates about his newly lavish lifestyle. A photo showed him standing in front of a mansion. New home, closing next week. Blessed, ours Powerball winner. The timestamp caught my eye. The lottery commission hadn't even released the full funds yet. Jason was already spending money he didn't officially have. I remembered Robert's face the day we remortgaged our home to pay for Jason's final year of law school. "It's worth it," he'd said. "Our boy will make us proud." I touched the screen, tracing the outline of the mansion. Something hardened inside me, a resolve I hadn't felt in years. Diana's words echoed. "The problem with arrogant people is they make stupid mistakes." For the first time since Jason's betrayal, I allowed myself to feel something beyond hurt. Anger. Clean, clarifying anger that burned away the fog of helplessness. I reached for my phone and texted Diana. "Set up the meeting with Sarah. I'm ready to fight." "Most attorneys wouldn't touch this case with a 10-foot pole," Sarah Chen said, her crisp pantsuit as sharp as her gaze. "But I'm not most attorneys." We sat in her modest office downtown, the Chicago skyline visible through rain-streaked windows. Diana had insisted on accompanying me for moral support. "Why would you help me?" I asked. "If Jason has millions—" "Because your son made a critical error," Sarah interrupted, tapping my credit card statement. "He failed to establish independent ownership of the ticket. In Illinois, using someone else's credit card for lottery purchases without explicit authorization constitutes conversion of property." "Meaning," Diana prompted, "meaning the ticket and winnings could legally belong to Margaret." Sarah leaned forward. "I'll take this case on contingency. If we win, I get 30%. If we lose, you owe nothing." Hope flickered dangerously in my chest. "What are our chances?" "The Lottery Commission holds funds in escrow during legal disputes. They've likely released only the initial 20% to Jason." Sarah's smile was predatory. "Your son's arrogance will be his downfall. He's a mediocre lawyer who thinks he's brilliant." As we left Sarah's office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Heard you're making trouble." "Bad idea, Mom." I showed Diana, my hands shaking. "He's monitoring your phone," she said, taking it from me. "First rule of battle, secure your communications." That evening, Diana helped me set up a new prepaid phone and email account. "Your son knows the system," she cautioned. "We need to be smarter." Later, in Diana's apartment, we plotted our next steps over tea. Her walls were lined with legal books, remnants from her paralegal days. "The burden of proof is on us," Diana explained. "We need to establish a paper trail connecting your card to the winning ticket." "How?" "The store where he bought it keeps records. Security footage, too, if we're lucky." I stared into my cup. "Will a judge really take my side against Jason? He's young, successful, and a thief," Diana finished. "Age doesn't grant immunity from justice." My phone rang, the old one we'd kept active to monitor Jason's communications. It was him. "Put it on speaker," Diana whispered. "Hello?" I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom." Jason's tone was condescending. "I heard you consulted an attorney. That's disappointing." "You stole from me," he laughed. "I managed your finances with your permission. Be careful with these accusations. The lottery ticket was purchased legitimately. I'm calling as a courtesy. Drop this now, or things will get unpleasant." After hanging up, I collapsed into Diana's couch. "He sounds so different, like a stranger." "Money doesn't change people," Diana said. "It reveals them." That night, I dreamed of Robert. He stood in our old kitchen, looking sad. "You gave him everything," Dream Robert said, "and he gave you nothing." I woke up with tears on my face, but determination in my heart. In the bathroom mirror, I studied my reflection, the woman who had spent decades putting everyone else first. "Not anymore," I whispered to my reflection. The next morning, Sarah called with news. "The lottery store owner remembers Jason. The purchase was flagged because he used a card with a woman's name. Store policy required documentation." My pulse quickened. "So there's proof?" "Better. There's video showing Jason using your card and transaction logs confirming it was your card number." For the first time, I allowed myself to believe that justice might be possible. "What happens next?" I asked. "Now," Sarah said, "we go to war." The deposition room felt like an icebox. Deliberately so, I suspected, as I watched Jason adjust his Italian silk tie. His new attorney, Thomas Reed, had a reputation for psychological tactics. "Mrs. Sullivan," Reed began, "please confirm that you authorized your son to manage your finances." I met his gaze steadily. "I authorized limited oversight, not gambling with my credit card." 5 hours of questions followed. They tried to paint me as confused, financially irresponsible, even manipulative. Jason sat silent, barely looking at me. During a break, Sarah squeezed my arm. "You're doing great. They're desperate." "He looks at me like I'm nothing," I whispered, "because you're threatening everything he's built on lies." Back in Diana's apartment, which had become our war room, we strategized over takeout. Sarah spread documents across the coffee table. "We've legally obtained access to Jason's financial records through discovery," she explained. "Look at these transactions." Diana studied the highlighted lines. Systematic withdrawals from Margaret's accounts, spanning years. $45,000 over the last decade, Sarah confirmed. Small amounts, just below suspicious thresholds. My stomach churned. "He's been stealing from me for years?" "There's more," Sarah said quietly. "The signature on this authorization form? Our expert says it's forged." I stared at the paper where my signature granted Jason full access to my retirement account. The handwriting was close, but not mine. "I never signed this." Diana disappeared into her bedroom, returning with an old leather box. "While you were at the deposition, I visited your storage unit. Found this." Inside was Robert's journal. I'd packed it away after his death, too painful to read. "Page 230, Diana directed. Robert's familiar handwriting jumped out at me. Financial discrepancies again. $2,000 missing from our joint account. Need to confront Jay tomorrow about the money disappearing. The next entry never came. Robert died the following day. The timing. I couldn't finish the sentence. "Coincidence, maybe," Sarah said carefully. "But it establishes a pattern of behavior." That night, alone in my small apartment, I reread Robert's journal. His words painted a picture of growing concern about Jason's financial habits. Concerns he'd shielded me from. "Margaret believes in him so completely," one entry read. "I can't bear to shatter her faith in our son." A knock at my door startled me. Through the peephole, I saw a courier with an envelope. Inside was a settlement offer, $3 million to drop the case. I called Sarah immediately. "They're scared," she said. "We must be getting close to something big." "Should I take it?" "That's your decision, Margaret. It's life-changing money." I thought about Robert's journal, about the years of deception, about the look in Jason's eyes when he evicted me. "No," I said finally. "This isn't just about money anymore." The next morning, Diana helped me search for more financial records in my remaining paperwork. We found bank statements showing unusual patterns around the time of Robert's death. "Look at this." Diana pointed to a large withdrawal the day after he died. "While you were arranging the funeral." The amount matched what was missing from Robert's final journal entry. Sarah's investigator discovered that Kevin Matthews, manager of Lucky Corner, had documented Jason's purchase because it triggered a security protocol. A man using a woman's credit card for lottery purchases. "The store keeps security footage for 180 days, Sarah reported. "We've subpoenaed it." As pieces fell into place, Jason's attorney proposed a private meeting. Against Sarah's advice, I agreed to see my son alone. "Consider the offer, Mom," Jason said, his voice cold. $3 million is generous." "It's not about the money, Jason. It's about what's right." Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, perhaps. "You can't win this." "Maybe not," I conceded, "but I can expose you." As I left, his mask slipped momentarily. "You'll regret this, Margaret." For the first time, he'd called me by my name instead of Mom. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Warren entered. 6 months had passed since I'd discovered Jason's betrayal. I barely recognized myself anymore. My posture straighter, my voice steadier, my gaze unwavering. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Eleanor Warren," the bailiff announced. The first hearing was procedural, but the gallery was packed with reporters. Lottery lawsuit, mother versus millionaire son, had become local news fodder. Jason sat with Thomas Reed and 2 junior attorneys. Their table was cluttered with leather-bound portfolios and digital tablets. Our side, just Sarah, Diana, and me, seemed outmatched. Judge Warren, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the filings. "Unusual case," she noted. "Mr. Reed, your motion to dismiss?" Reed stood. "Your Honor, this lawsuit is a transparent attempt by Mrs. Sullivan to extort her successful son. The authorization form clearly—" "The authorization Mrs. Sullivan never signed?" Sarah interrupted, approaching with our expert's report. Forensic analysis confirms the signature was forged. Judge Warren examined the document. Concerning. And the lottery purchase itself? Sarah presented the credit card statement and transaction records from Lucky Corner. The winning ticket was purchased with Mrs. Sullivan's card without specific authorization for lottery expenses. Reed countered with the General Financial Management Agreement. They argued legal technicalities while I watched Jason. He maintained a practiced, neutral expression, occasionally whispering to his attorneys. Enough, Judge Warren finally said. There's sufficient merit for this case to proceed. The Lottery Commission will maintain the remaining funds in escrow pending resolution. She turned to me directly. Mrs. Sullivan, given your financial circumstances, I'm approving a reasonable monthly stipend from the disputed funds for your living and legal expenses. Jason's face flushed dark red. Outside the courtroom, security cameras caught him punching his car's hood in frustration. Later that evening, celebrating our first victory at Diana's apartment, Sarah cautioned us. This is just the beginning. They'll fight harder now. What's our next step? I asked. Follow the money, Diana suggested. If Jason's been systematically stealing for years, there must be a trail. Sarah nodded. We need to depose his colleagues, search for witnesses. That night, returning to my apartment, I found the door slightly ajar. Heart pounding, I called Diana, who arrived with the building security guard. My small space had been methodically searched, drawers opened, papers rifled through, laptop missing. This is intimidation, Sarah said when she arrived. We're filing for a restraining order immediately. Diana installed small security cameras in my apartment the next day. Simple precaution, she explained, showing me how to monitor the feed from my phone. A week later, the cameras caught a professional-looking man entering with a lockpick set. He photographed documents and planted something in my bedroom. Likely a listening device, Diana said, as we reviewed the footage with Sarah. Your son's getting desperate. Police identified the intruder as a private investigator known for working with high-profile clients. When confronted with the evidence, he quickly turned on Jason, admitting he was hired to find compromising information. Judge Warren was not amused. This behavior suggests consciousness of guilt, she noted during an emergency hearing. The court will draw appropriate inferences. For the first time, I saw fear in Jason's eyes, not of losing the money, but of losing control of the narrative he'd carefully constructed. They're going to settle, Sarah predicted as we left the courthouse. The question is, what's your price now? I thought about it for a long moment. Justice, I finally said. Nothing less. Mrs. Sullivan, Michael Peterson, I worked with your husband. The man on my doorstep was in his 70s, with the careful posture of someone managing chronic pain. Diana hovered protectively nearby. Robert never mentioned you, I said cautiously. We were in accounting together. He handed me a faded company photo. Robert stood in the back row, much younger, arm around a dark-haired Peterson. May I come in? It's about your case. I've been following it in the news. Over coffee, Peterson explained. The day before Robert died, he consulted our legal department about financial impropriety. He was deeply troubled. My cup clattered against its saucer. What kind of impropriety? He didn't specify, but he mentioned it involved family. Peterson leaned forward. As partial executor of his estate, I've kept certain documents secure. Robert documented his concerns. Sarah verified Peterson's identity before requesting the documents through proper legal channels. What we received confirmed our suspicions. Robert had been investigating financial discrepancies tied to Jason's law school expenses. He knew, I whispered, clutching the papers. Robert knew Jason was stealing from us. The evidence strengthened our case substantially. Judge Warren granted our motion for expanded discovery, giving us access to Jason's communications around the time of the lottery win. Pressure mounted. Jason's firm placed him on extended leave as the case garnered more publicity. His Instagram posts about mansion renovations and exotic car purchases abruptly stopped. In the 7th month of litigation, Sarah received an unexpected call. Ethan Lawson, she announced, covering the mouthpiece. Jason's former colleague, wants to testify. Lawson had kept emails and texts where Jason boasted about manipulating me financially, calling me his personal bank without fees. Most damning was a message sent the day of the lottery win. Used the old lady's card, she'll never know. Why are you doing this? I asked Lawson after his deposition. He showed me a disciplinary notice. Jason altered documents and left my signature on them. Nearly got me disbarred. This isn't about helping you. It's about making sure he gets what's coming to him. With mounting evidence against him, Jason's attorney proposed another settlement, $50 million, nearly half the remaining prize after taxes. Diana found me staring at the offer letter in her living room. Thinking about taking it? I'm thinking about Robert, I admitted. What he would want. And he'd want justice. But also peace. Before I could decide, my new security system alerted me to movement in my apartment. The cameras showed Jason himself searching through my belongings. Sarah immediately filed for contempt of court. At the emergency hearing, Jason appeared disheveled, his designer suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "Your Honor, I was retrieving personal items that belonged to me," he claimed. The security footage told a different story. Jason methodically searching through my financial documents, photographing pages. Judge Warren's patience had ended. "Mr. Sullivan, your continued violation of court orders suggests you have something to hide. This court is ordering a complete forensic audit of your finances going back 10 years. Outside the courtroom, I came face to face with Jason for the first time in months without lawyers between us. "You've ruined everything," he hissed, eyes wild. "I gave you a home when no one wanted you." The comment might once have devastated me. Now I just felt pity. "No, Jason. I gave you everything, and you took even more." My voice remained steady. "The difference is, I gave from love. You took from greed." As security escorted him away, I noticed something I'd missed before. He wore the same watch Robert had worn every day of his adult life, the watch that had disappeared from my belongings when Jason evicted me. Some things, it seemed, could not be replaced with lottery winnings. Diana squeezed my hand. "The final hearing is in 2 weeks. Are you ready?" I nodded, watching my son's retreating figure. "I've been ready for years. I just didn't know it. Ms. Chen, call your next witness." The plaintiff calls Kevin Matthews. The manager of Lucky Corner took the stand, adjusting his glasses nervously. Jason's legal team had fought hard to exclude his testimony. "Mr. Matthews, do you recall the day the winning lottery ticket was sold at your store?" "Yes, ma'am. It's not every day we sell a $237 million winner." "And do you recall who purchased that ticket?" Kevin pointed directly at Jason. "Him, 5 minutes before closing." "How can you be so certain?" "Because the transaction was flagged in our system. When someone uses a credit card with a female name, company policy requires additional verification." Sarah displayed the store's security footage on the courtroom screen. There was Jason, clearly using my card. The timestamp matched exactly with the transaction record. "Mr. Matthews, what happened after the purchase was flagged?" I asked for ID. He said it was his mother's card, but he had authorization. I documented the incident in our daily log, as required. Jason's attorney objected repeatedly, but Judge Warren allowed the testimony. When Matthews stepped down, Sarah called the forensic accountant who had traced years of unauthorized transactions from my accounts to Jason's. Mrs. Sullivan's signature appears on just 3 of the 12 authorization forms, the expert testified. The others show clear signs of forgery. During cross-examination, Jason's team tried to portray me as financially incompetent, someone who needed supervision. I kept my composure, remembering Diana's coaching. Answer only what's asked. Don't volunteer information. When my turn came to testify, I walked to the stand with steady steps. The woman who had entered this courthouse 6 months ago, shoulders hunched, voice trembling, was gone. "Mrs. Sullivan," Sarah began, "did you ever specifically authorize your son to use your credit card for lottery purchases?" "No. The agreement was for household expenses only. And if you had won the lottery yourself, what would you have done?" Thomas Reed objected immediately. "Speculative." "I'll rephrase," Sarah said smoothly. "Mrs. Sullivan, did you regularly purchase lottery tickets?" "Never. I considered it wasteful." The questioning continued 4 hours. Reed's cross-examination was brutal, designed to provoke an emotional response. I remained calm, answering precisely, making eye contact with the judge. Finally, it was Jason's turn to testify. He took the stand with practiced confidence, but I noticed the slight tremor in his hands. "Mr. Sullivan," Reed began, "please explain your financial arrangement with your mother." I've managed her finances for years, Jason replied smoothly. She's always been careless with money. The arrangement protected her from herself. And the lottery ticket purchase? A routine transaction. I often bought small items with her card and reimbursed her. The agreement gave me broad discretion. Sarah's cross-examination was surgical. When exactly did you reimburse your mother for the lottery ticket? Jason hesitated. I don't recall specifically. Because you never did, correct? I would have, had she not sued me. Sarah produced Jason's bank records. Your account shows no withdrawals corresponding to reimbursements for any lottery purchases. In fact, it shows systematic transfers from your mother's accounts to yours over 7 years. Jason's composure cracked. She's my mother. Everything I did was for her own good. Including evicting her after winning the lottery with her money? His face darkened. I earned that win. I put up with her for years. The courtroom fell silent. Even Reed winced. Judge Warren spoke quietly. Mr. Sullivan, you put up with the woman who raised you, supported your education, and gave you a home. Jason realized his mistake too late. I didn't mean... The witness will answer the question, Judge Warren instructed. Sarah pressed forward. Mr. Sullivan, did you use your mother's credit card to purchase the winning lottery ticket without her specific knowledge or consent for that purpose? Trapped by his own testimony and the evidence, Jason finally admitted, yes. A murmur ran through the courtroom. I closed my eyes briefly, not in pain, but in relief. The truth finally spoken aloud. As we adjourned for the day, Diana whispered, Did you see his face? He's finished. For the first time since this began, I allowed myself to believe she might be right. They're offering $100 million, Sarah announced, setting the settlement document on Diana's coffee table. No admission of wrongdoing, full confidentiality. 9 months had passed since I'd found myself homeless. The case had consumed our lives, generating headlines and dividing public opinion. What do you think? I asked both women. Diana shrugged. It's your decision, but remember, he's desperate now. The forensic audit had uncovered offshore accounts where Jason had been hiding assets for years, including funds from his law firm's client accounts. The State Bar Association had opened an ethics investigation. The final hearing is in 3 days, Sarah reminded me. Judge Warren seems inclined to rule in our favor, but nothing is guaranteed. I studied the settlement offer. $100 million would secure my future beyond imagination. The case would end. Yet something felt unfinished. I need to see him, I decided. Not with lawyers, just us. Sarah objected strenuously, but ultimately arranged a meeting at her office, neutral territory with security cameras. Jason arrived alone, looking thinner than I remembered, the designer suit hanging loosely on his frame. You wanted to talk? So talk, he said, not meeting my eyes. I studied my son's face, Robert's jawline, my eyes. Where had we gone wrong? Why, Jason? We gave you everything. Gave me? He laughed bitterly. Dad died and left me with a mother who clung to me like a drowning woman. Do you know what it's like having your future held hostage by someone else's neediness? His words should have hurt, but I felt oddly detached, like watching a stranger perform a play about my life. I put you through law school, I said quietly. I used your father's life insurance, money that could have secured my retirement. And you never let me forget it. He slammed his fist on the table, every sacrifice thrown in my face. Jason, I gave up everything for you. Your martyrdom was suffocating. I sat perfectly still. Is that how you saw it? My love was suffocating? Your dependence was. Your constant presence, He waved dismissively. Everything. The silence stretched between us. Finally, I asked the question that had haunted me for months. Did you know your father suspected you were stealing from us? The day before he died? Jason's face went blank. What are you talking about? I placed Robert's journal on the table. He was going to confront you. Jason's eyes flickered to the journal, then away. Dad's heart condition was genetic. You can't possibly believe... I don't know what to believe anymore, I interrupted. But I know who you've become. He scoffed. A winner? Someone who finally escaped your shadow? A thief, I corrected gently. Not just of money, but of trust. His expression hardened. Take the settlement. Walk away rich. Isn't that what you want? I stood, smoothing my jacket. a new one, purchased with my court-approved stipend. What I want isn't available for purchase, Jason. As I reached the door, he called after me. If you take this to final judgment, I'll appeal. This could drag on for years. I turned back one last time. Then I'll see you in court, for as long as it takes. Later, I explained my decision to Sarah and Diana. The settlement buys his silence and his freedom from accountability. I can't put a price on justice. Sarah nodded solemnly. Then we finished this. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened Robert's journal to its final entry. The last words my husband wrote before his heart gave out. No matter what happens, I need to protect Margaret. She deserves better. I traced his handwriting with my fingertip. I'm protecting myself now, Robert, I whispered. Just watch me. The next morning, Ethan Lawson called with new information. I found something you should see before the final hearing. Hours later, we reviewed the evidence in Sarah's office. Emails proving Jason had planned to use my credit card for lottery purchases for months, systematically testing the limits of the authorization. This proves premeditation, Sarah said, eyes gleaming. The final piece we needed. As we prepared for court the next day, I felt a strange calm. Whatever happened, I had already won something precious. My self-respect. Diana found me staring out the window. Penny, for your thoughts? I was just remembering who I used to be. The woman who made herself invisible to make everyone else comfortable. Diana smiled. She's long gone. Yes, I agreed. She certainly is. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Judge Warren entered for the final hearing. After 9 months of litigation, dozens of motions, and hundreds of exhibits, today would bring resolution. Jason sat with his legal team, now expanded to 5 attorneys. The Lottery Commission's representative attended to address the disposition of the funds still held in escrow. Before we begin, Judge Warren announced, I want to address settlement discussions. My heart skipped. Had Jason's team made a last-minute offer? This court was informed of a $100 million settlement proposal that was rejected. While I don't typically comment on settlements, I find it necessary to note that justice is not measured in dollars. She fixed Jason with a penetrating stare. With that said, closing arguments. Sarah rose first. Your Honor, this case, at its core, is about trust betrayed. Margaret Sullivan sacrificed everything for her son's future. In return, he systematically exploited her finances for years, culminating in the purchase of a lottery ticket with her credit card, without her knowledge or consent. She methodically reviewed the evidence. The forged authorizations, the pattern of financial exploitation, the credit card statement showing the lottery purchase, the store manager's testimony, and Jason's own damning admissions under oath. Illinois law is clear. Using someone else's financial instrument for unauthorized purposes creates a constructive trust. The lottery winnings rightfully belong to the person whose funds purchased the ticket, Margaret Sullivan. Thomas Reed's closing argument focused on Jason's management of my finances. Mrs. Sullivan willingly granted her son authority. She benefited from his expertise. This lawsuit is nothing more than opportunistic greed triggered by an unexpected windfall. Judge Warren listened impassively, occasionally making notes. When both sides finished, she announced, I'll render my decision after a 30-minute recess. In the hallway, Diana squeezed my hand. No matter what happens, you stood up for yourself. That's already a victory. When court reconvened, Judge Warren delivered her ruling with surgical precision. The evidence in this case demonstrates a disturbing pattern of financial exploitation perpetrated by the defendant against his own mother. Mr. Sullivan repeatedly crossed legal and ethical boundaries, culminating in the purchase of a lottery ticket using Mrs. Sullivan's credit card without specific authorization for such purpose. She continued, Illinois law regarding unauthorized use of financial instruments is unambiguous. When a person uses another's funds without proper authorization, any proceeds from such use belong to the owner of the funds. The courtroom held its collective breath. Therefore, I find that the lottery winnings rightfully belong to the plaintiff, Margaret Sullivan. The Lottery Commission is directed to release all funds held in escrow to Mrs. Sullivan after accounting for taxes already paid and reasonable living expenses incurred by the defendant during these proceedings. She turned to Jason directly. Mr. Sullivan, as an officer of the court, your conduct has been particularly troubling. I am referring this matter to the Illinois Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission for review. Jason's face drained of color. His career, already damaged, might now be over entirely. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around us. Sarah handled most questions while I stood tall beside her, no longer the invisible woman I'd been a year ago. "Mrs. Sullivan, how does it feel to win?" a reporter called out. I considered the question carefully. This was never about winning. It was about truth. Later, celebrating quietly in Diana's apartment, Sarah outlined next steps. The funds transfer will take 30-60 days. We'll need to address tax implications, set up proper financial management. "Will Jason appeal?" I asked. "He might try, but his chances are minimal. The evidence is overwhelming." Diana raised her glass. "To Margaret, who taught us all what courage looks like." As they chatted, I stepped onto the balcony for a moment alone. The Chicago skyline glittered in the distance. Somewhere out there, Jason was facing the consequences of his actions. I felt no joy in his downfall, only a sense of completion. The circle had closed. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over." I deleted it without responding. Jason was wrong. It was over, not because of a court ruling or money, but because I had finally broken free of the need for his approval or love. The woman who had lived in fear was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who would never be invisible again. I rejoined Diana and Sarah, ready to plan my new future, one built on my terms, not defined by sacrifice or exploitation. "What's next for you?" Sarah asked. I smiled, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "Everything." 1 year after Judge Warren's ruling, I stood in the community center, addressing 24 women and men, all survivors of financial abuse. "Recovery isn't just about money," I explained. "It's about reclaiming your voice." The Sullivan Foundation for Financial Empowerment, established with a portion of my lottery winnings, provided education, legal assistance, and support to victims of financial exploitation. Diana served as program coordinator, bringing her decades of legal experience to help others navigate complex situations. "Mrs. Sullivan?" A hesitant voice from the back. "How did you find the courage to fight your own son?" The question still stung, but not like before. "By remembering my own worth," I answered honestly, something I'd forgotten for too long. After the session, Diana and I walked to the small cafe across the street, our Tuesday tradition. Sarah called. Diana mentioned casually. Jason's petition for reinstatement was denied again. I nodded, absorbing the information. After his license was suspended, Jason had struggled. The money he'd received before the lawsuit, about $20 million, had evaporated through reckless spending, legal fees, and poor investments. His mansion and luxury cars had been repossessed. "Is he still in the treatment program?" I asked. "Apparently, 8 months now." Following the ruling, Jason had been diagnosed with gambling addiction and narcissistic personality traits. Part of his agreement with the Bar Association included mandatory therapy and addiction treatment. I sipped my tea, watching people pass by outside. My life had transformed beyond recognition. The modest house I'd purchased in a quiet Chicago neighborhood, the foundation work that gave purpose to my days, the financial security I'd never imagined possible. Yet something remained unresolved. "I received another letter from him," I admitted. Diana raised an eyebrow. "And? He wants to meet." His therapist would be present. 8 previous letters had gone unanswered. This was the first time I'd even mentioned them to Diana. "Are you considering it?" I'd asked myself the same question all morning. "I don't know." Later that week, under Sarah's legal supervision, I established a structured trust for Jason. It would provide modest monthly support contingent upon continued therapy and community service. Not enough for luxury, but sufficient to rebuild a life with dignity, if he chose that path. "You don't owe him this," Sarah reminded me. "I know. It's not about owing." On a crisp autumn morning, I met Jason at his therapist's office. 13 months had passed since I'd seen him last. The expensive suits and arrogant posture were gone. He looked older, more subdued. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Levine, his therapist, facilitated our conversation, setting boundaries, redirecting when tensions rose. Jason spoke about his treatment, his recognition of his gambling addiction, his work with other addicts. "I can't change what I did," he said finally, "but I'm trying to understand why I did it." I listened without interrupting. The anger that had fueled me for so long had gradually transformed into something quieter. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a release. "I never wanted to hurt you," he continued. "That sounds ridiculous after everything, but it's true. I just couldn't see past my own needs." "And now?" I asked. "Now I'm learning to see myself clearly. It's not pretty, but it's necessary." As our session ended, Jason handed me an envelope. "My treatment program requires making amends. This is my letter to you. You don't have to read it." Outside, leaves swirled around us in the parking lot. For a moment, I glimpsed the little boy who had once held my hand crossing streets, who had cried when Robert taught him to ride a bike, who had beamed with pride at his law school graduation. "I'm not ready to forgive you, Jason," I said honestly. "I don't know if I ever will be." He nodded, accepting this. "But I do want you to heal," I continued. "Sarah will contact you about the trust I've established. It's conditional on continuing treatment and staying accountable." "Why would you do that? After everything?" I considered the question carefully. "Because despite everything, you're still my son, and because I refuse to let bitterness define the rest of my life." Later that evening, I sat on my porch swing watching the sunset. Diana had called to check on me after the meeting, but I'd needed solitude to process the day. I opened Jason's letter finally, reading his awkward attempts at accountability. The words were less important than the effort they represented, a first, tentative step on a very long road. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Levine. "Jason completed today's group session. He spoke about your meeting. Small steps." I set the phone down, breathing deeply. The future remained uncertain. My relationship with Jason might never truly heal. Yet something had shifted inside me. The woman who had once made herself small to accommodate others now occupied her space in the world, unapologetically. The teacher who had shaped young minds was now helping others reclaim their power. The mother who had given everything was learning the liberation of healthy boundaries. As twilight settled over Chicago, I felt Robert's presence beside me. Not in grief, but in peace. "We did our best," I whispered to the gathering darkness. "Now it's time to live." Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.